Well, hey, we're live, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm David Blackman, your apparent host for this week. I wasn't supposed to be, but we don't know where Tammy is. She was going to do this week, but I'll try to struggle through it. I am here today with Irina Slav from Bulgaria. Irina, how are you today?
Thank you, David. I'm great.
Irina is a wonderful writer, energy analyst who writes at oilprice.com and also at Substack, where she has a lot more freedom to exercise her acerbic wit on the energy scene. And it's always really insightful and entertaining stuff, Irina. What'd you write about this morning?
Thank you. Oh, this morning I wrote about so-called sustainable aviation fuels. It's a really funny story. Europe can't wait to bankrupt itself in the most spectacular way possible. You know, they're trying to make fuels. I'll talk about this later. They cost thousands of dollars to make a ton of it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but emissions, you know.
that sounds about right. Yeah, that's pretty par for the course, and not just in the EU, but all over the Western world. And also with us today is Stuart Turley, a man about town in both Oklahoma and Texas. I don't know where he is today, and he probably doesn't want to disclose his location. How you doing, Stu?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm up in Oklahoma, but I got my backhoe ordered. You and I were talking because I got to dig a bunker. So I went ahead and just bought a backhoe.
Stu is the only person I know who actually buys a backhoe when he needs to dig up a few tree stumps.
You never know when you're going to need it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Hi, Tammy.
Hi there.
It's good to see you. You were supposed to be the ringleader of this deal today. Do you want to take it over? Because you do
Nope,
so
that's
much better job than I do.
No, that's okay. I'll do it next time. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
My computer decided to do some kind of virus scan like 10 minutes before. And I'm like, what are you doing, computer? Don't do that.
Oh my gosh, I hate that. That's a Microsoft thing, probably. No, it's probably a McAfee thing. Do you have McAfee?
No.
Okay, well, anyway, they all do it, and they do it at the worst possible time. And back to Stu. Stu, tell before we get going, tell everyone where they can find you on the internets.
Well, the best place is energynewsbeat.co, and you can see all my podcasts there and all of our stories. It's a lot of fun, and also the energynewsbeat .substack.com. And love doing it. I'm writing a couple fun papers for trying to get Chris Wright on the show. And I'm trying to write 3 papers on ending ethanol, getting the Jones Act together, and a couple others. And it's going to be tough, but with Doge here and what's going on, it's a time that I think we can move on some of these things.
Yeah. Don't get me started on the Jones Act. I could talk about that for days.
I knew I could work you up.
I wish you well, because that's the hardest nut to crack possible. Tammy, Dr. Tammy Nemeth, where are you today?
I'm in the UK today.
You're in the UK today? Okay, well, we'll speak carefully about the Starmer government so we don't get you in trouble.
Tammy, is your power line failing behind your house, or is that Christmas lights?
That's Christmas lights.
Oh,
I was just wondering.
Awesome.
You will be wasting electricity on Christmas decorations.
Yes, I guess we're violating whatever code they have for rationing or appropriate use. You know, what's sufficient? What's sufficient with these people?
Yes. Well, Tammy also has exciting news. She started her own Substack last week.
Yay.
And it's wonderful. Her first post I shared with folks on my Substack is really fantastic. And I'm so happy to see you doing that.
Yes. It was high time you joined us.
Yay. We can be like the new Substack crew. That's great.
Yeah, we're all on there now. It's great. And good morning to Robert De Domenico. Said good morning. Shawnee Reslin also says good morning from Alaska.
Alaska. Hi.
Yay.
Hey, also David and Tammy and Irina, our staff will be providing the transcript, and we can put the videos out there for you all to put on your individual Substacks, so
Yes.
that we put this out on your podcasts out there.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Sandstone Group.
Yes.
The Jones Act, Richard, you are spot on. I'm trying to get this done.
Yeah, it's a problem
The
for everybody.
northeastern U.S. LNG, it's like Hawaii trying to get rid of coal, but they can't import LNG from the U.S., so they're going to be buying it from Russia.
Yep.
Go figure
Yep.
that out.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Hey, Gail,
Hi, Gail.
we love Gail.
Great to
All
see
right.
everybody. So let's get going on our topic for today, which is,
Woohoo.
go back to the slide. I'll just read it. I can't remember exactly what we called this. The energy transition meets energy reality. We seem to arrive at the same point in time at the end of every year, don't we? I mean, every year goes by and this thing is supposed to be a real transition. And we get to the end of the year and we realize, no, there's no real transition going on. And we're here to talk about that today. And so I'm going to call on, well, Tammy can lead off the discussion about whether we're in a real energy transition or not.
It depends on how you're defining energy transition, as always. But inevitably, it's all about the energy realities, and at some point, the reality comes home to roost. And I think with the energy transition, there's this move to try and shift all this investment money out of hydrocarbons, whether it's oil, gas, coal, whatever, and into whatever the fashionable form of energy is. And we can have conversations about, what do you mean electricity? Do you mean other energy use? And what other products might come from things like oil or whatever. So it's interesting that there's a lot of talk, a lot of hype around transition, but when push comes to shove and people want to have reliable, affordable energy, it's not necessarily the transition isn't doing what their supporters say it's doing. So we can look at, for example, Germany, other countries in the EU, or countries that are in the Schengen zone, which means that they can trade with the EU with limited amount of restrictions and so on. And I'm sure Irina will have some fantastic points to make about what's going on with Norway. And that's sort of what brought us to this topic today, where, there's this over-reliance on energy interconnectors. And the UK is putting a lot of faith into relying on other countries in the European area to supply them through interconnections with electricity that they know their own push forward towards wind and solar can't meet. And so they're closing down coal. They want to phase out natural gas. Nuclear takes an eternity to do anything. And so therefore they want to rely on these interconnections, but that's not secure. And as much as you think you're friends today, when prices start to increase and people start to suffer, then all bets are off.
Yes. Irina, I'm going to call on you next, since Tammy referenced you and the wonderful points you're going to make about all this. Talk about Norway. What's happening there?
It's actually one of my stories, but what the hell, it doesn't matter really. And I covered it last week in a Substack post, because this was the lesson I was waiting for. The lesson that somebody teaches the green madmen and mad women. And Norway has seen such an increase in domestic electricity prices because of its exports of electricity to Europe, that it's going to stop exports via the interconnectors to Denmark, to Germany, possibly the Netherlands, and the UK. All of the countries that, as Tammy said, try to be even more reliant on electricity imports from countries. Okay, forget about Norway. Norway has hydro, it has natural gas, but the UK, I think, was building an interconnector to Ireland and to the Netherlands. And the Netherlands is in the grips of the same insanity.
Yes.
The Netherlands is putting up wind turbines and solar panels everywhere. It's making itself vulnerable. Okay, so let's imagine this. We're in the dark doldrums, as they charmingly translate Dunkelflaute. And I like this translation. I don't know German, so I like this translation. In winter, there's generally not a lot of wind in northwestern Europe, as we have seen recently. There is no solar to speak of. So the UK is building an interconnector to the Netherlands that's probably worth a lot of millions. And then the Netherlands cannot respond to this demand, so it has to import the electricity to then export it to the UK. How exactly are these people thinking this is going to work?
Oh God.
Especially when Norway, shuts its own interconnectors and says, sorry guys, we cannot subsidize a 20-fold increase in our domestic electricity prices. Because that's what Norway does. It has the money. Why does it have the money to subsidize electricity prices for households? Because it is a massive oil and gas producer.
Right.
Yeah.
And it plans to invest more in oil and gas production next year.
And,
A lot
and
more, yeah.
Irina, 2 years ago, they were trying to shut down their gas fields on land, and then they were trying to shut down their off-sea things as well, too. So it's amazing what 2 years in a war does to Norway.
The Norwegians, yeah. Well, some. I think the government was never really big on that. It was more environmental activists and some activists masked as politicians. But yeah, they have seen the light now.
Yeah.
Really shocking.
Stu, what do you think about it all?
I think that it is actually, I think we've got a thing. Let me jump to this question here. John ask a very question. I want Tammy or Irina to ask this one. Have you taken a look at the UK government report, Clean Power 2030 Action Plan?
I did, but I think Tammy would be more eloquent on it.
Let's throw Tammy under that bus.
You're gonna throw me under that bus. I've downloaded it, but I haven't read it yet.
Okay.
Well, I saw the news release. It was really a lot of talk again.
A lot
Very
of stuff involved.
scary talk because they're trying. To me, it sounded scary that they want to prevent people from protesting, from stopping wind and solar projects.
Yeah.
You know, David, I think that this really articulates where we are. I've got two videos that I want to show and help tee off this conversation. The first one is, imagine you're a father and you want to teach your son to ride a motorcycle, and you think that this is a good idea. And you think that the father is the elected politicians and they're throwing out this energy policy. Here is either the Biden administration, or it is the UK or the EU or one of the governments out there trying to do green energy policy. So here we go.
Oh, this should turn out fine.
Oh yeah. Is this a good thing?
Nothing bad could possibly happen.
What could go wrong?
It's going.
Okay.
Reality. Right there.
Great
Okay,
line.
right there.
Reality.
Now, I guarantee you the guy in the yellow shirt was an uncle because he was not a dad. Dads have a way of reaching out and grabbing a kid
Right.
before death hits.
It was
So
definitely
now-
a cousin or an uncle.
Absolutely. And so this is another way. And you asked me about the Biden administration is so horrific that they're putting out all this crap before they can get Trump into office. This is disgusting. Here is the Biden DOD doubling down. This is a secret training mission on the Biden DOD training for climate change. Why is the Department of Defense training for climate change?
I like Coco.
Okay, I don't get it. I absolutely do not get why they're doing it.
I just
Well,
I-
this
honestly-
is a substantial threat the world is facing to climate change.
It's
Oh,
existence.
yes,
Yeah.
certainly. Okay, New Jersey residential rates at 26.5 cents per kilowatt hour. You know what they paid in Norway last week because of these interconnections? $1.18 per kilowatt hour. Okay.
Yeah.
No, but the thing about Norway is that the government is paying.
Right. Yeah.
It
right,
doesn't want riots.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it can't keep paying forever. And as John said in another comment, if you could show
Oh,
this.
yeah. I think the
The
UK
UK
government is in
government's
Norway.
in Norway begging for the interconnector not to be switched off. Yeah, probably. Or they're about to.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to Catherine Porter, who has really been following the UK energy interconnection situation, and she's written a couple of really good reports underlining the energy security implications of relying on interconnections. And it's hilarious because in the news release to the Clean Power 2030 Action Plan, and again, I haven't read the document yet, just the news release like Irina. But in it, they're talking about, well, this will help energy security to not be reliant on international energy prices. It's like, what? And do you
Literally
think
always
electricity?
say exactly the opposite of what the policies do.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, at least when you import natural gas, because you're shutting down your own fields, which is idiotic in itself, you only rely on the price of the feedstock. When you're buying electricity, you're buying an end product, which is bound to be more expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, here in the United States, we've got the same kind of stuff happening. California is a basket case, of course, because
Yeah.
it's followed everything Germany's done. Gavin Newsom has made sure of that. And they're importing now electricity from Wyoming, from Nevada, from Utah, Arizona. And what's happening? Well, the high electricity rates in California are starting to flow back upstream to all these states that are stupid enough to agree to export electricity into California. And for exactly the same reasons as it's happening to Norway. And so, I mean, this is all the most predictable stuff in the world.
Yeah.
And yet they're going to continue doubling down on it, folks, until we force them to stop. We're seeing it with the Biden administration in its final few weeks. On Sunday, announced they're going to give $1.6 billion to green energy propaganda operations, these NGOs who are going to take that money, by the way, and they're going to funnel it into media outlets like the Washington Post and the Financial Times and the Economist, and all these legacy media outlets that used to be reputable operations are now getting funding essentially from the government, but it's passing it through these NGOs to get to them, to hire an army of climate writers to write all this propaganda and spew it out on the airwaves. And and so that's and over the weekend there was a notice from the White House from the what is it called, the CEQ, Council on Environmental Quality, to all of its regulatory agencies to push as much of this IRA money as they possibly can out the door, commit it to be spent by January 20th when the Trump administration comes in. So we get to this again. We get to the same point at the end of every year. We're going to use a record amount of coal this year during 2024, all-time high, all-time record amount of oil, all-time record amount of natural gas, all-time record amount of wood burned for fuel, the highest we've ever done, despite having wasted trillions and trillions of dollars on subsidies for these supposed alternatives that cannot create an energy transition because they simply are not viable alternatives. And it's a form of madness. It's a global religious exercise. And, hopefully the Trump administration will come in and make a big difference in all this in the United States. But in Europe, as we discussed last week, even when conservatives parties win elections, the globalists find ways to prevent them from actually governing the country. And of course, in Britain, elected a bunch of communists to run the country for the next 5 years. So it's a tougher situation in Europe than it is in the United States, to be sure. Let's see here. Robert says you saw the video of the government agent bragging that they were giving away public funding, like throwing gold bars off the Titanic. Yes, that was an actual executive official in the EPA, okay, admitting that on camera. And our news media did not report it. There was not a single second of reporting on that by any of our major TV networks.
Very true. There's a very good comment asking for advice for young engineers that are being groomed into being renewable and CO2 capture experts instead of focusing on learning useful stuff. Well, I can't imagine what it takes to groom engineers who should know, they're supposed to know physics and how things work. Maybe they're just being, I don't know, brainwashed again, because they're being told that this is the future. And after you're being told this enough times, you begin to believe it. But I'd say stick to the fundamentals, remember what you actually learned at university and don't give in to the indoctrination. Because I think in a few years, there will be a massive, massive demand for engineers who know the useful stuff.
Yeah.
There's already
seem to
engineers in energy.
But they seem to only being educated in the useful stuff in Eastern Europe, China, Russia. And like, for example, in North American universities, the students who would like to do, say, petroleum engineering and other types of engineering that wouldn't necessarily be along the renewable lines, they're treated quite poorly by the other students. And when you're faced in that kind of intellectual milieu in which you're supposedly supporting a field of inquiry that is unfashionable and unpopular, it's really hard to continue down that road. Like, for example, at the University of Calgary, they temporarily stopped recruitment for petroleum engineering.
Yeah.
Which was the university that had to restart its petroleum engineering program due to demand.
And that was Calgary. So
that was
so they stopped it, and then it was like, well, what are you doing? And then they reintroduced it. But I spoke to some students who were there and asked them, like, why, what's your sense of what's going on? And they said, it's really hard because you get called names and treated very poorly by the more activist students on campus. And, if that's a really terrible learning environment. So I would say if students are really keen to do it, is there maybe a different way to do engineering that isn't through a typical university, but maybe more of a technical college or university or something? I don't know.
Wow.
I will say this.
Advice. Get access to the real information.
Yeah. And reading Fossil Future is a great idea.
Yeah.
But I also say that it's not everybody in college. Okay. I get inquiries quite often from students at universities. I had a great deal of interaction with a group of graduate students in engineering at the University of Southern California. Had very realistic outlook on what's really happening in the energy space. And they were writing one of their papers on, what's really happening with the energy transition, and asked me for some input, and I gave it to them. But they were really, I had a couple of Zoom calls with them, really smart, well-grounded individuals at a very liberal university. University of Southern California is not some conservative institution. So that was very encouraging. And then also, if you're going into college, consider going to a school that has eliminated its DEI operations, like the University of Texas. The whole university system in the state of Texas has ordered the closing of all those offices and the firing of all the employees. And so you have options where you go to school. And if you're going to go to an Ivy League university, I know that they're getting a spot at Harvard is a very coveted thing, or Columbia University, but they are just basically diploma mills for communists at this point. And, you have to make intelligent decisions about where you decide to go to school as well.
Michael
Gail
says working on on pipeline engineering, and he has been forced to work on CO2 pipelines. Don't worry, big data centers, big tech, and data centers and AI will create such a demand for new natural gas pipelines that there will
Oh
be
yeah.
a lot of work. And just try to steer clear from the toxic environment. I know it's hard.
Gail has a great point. We have to keep the focus of universities on good science and future energy realities. That is an outstanding point, Gail, especially when David has once said physics and fiscal responsibility matter. I believe David Blackman is a great man that once said that. I could be wrong.
Well, I once said that. I don't think I'm a great man, but I did say
Well, okay.
No.
Okay.
And I'd like to add that, as students, the situation when you're entering university is a little bit different now than, say, when I went through or older people have gone through. You kind of have to look at where you want to go, look at who the professors are, what the structure of their course is, and see if that kind of professor is someone you want to learn from. Because quite often, what the courses that they might require you to take could be diverted along these alternative lines, there's nothing wrong with researching the engineering of renewable energy. It has its place in certain niche applications, but should we be putting an entire modern industrial technological civilization on that? No, at least not at the current state of technology. And so you need to do some research into who the professors are and decide if that's who you want to be taught by. It's one of the proactive things that future engineers ought to be taking.
You're dead on right, Tammy, and that is Elon Musk will have the surviving EV car manufacturer in the United States because he does not take subsidies. Subsidies come to him in other ways, through tax credits and things, but he's using the system. He's not taking direct things. So you are spot on that. We don't need to be doing that.
No, we don't. And you're right about that. I mean, I think Tesla's going to be the last man standing in the EV industry in the United States. And then it'll be a matter of importing cars from China. Once that we elect another Democrat, they'll allow that to start happening. And he'll be competing against them. But, Ford, GM, Stellantis, they're all going to fail. They're bleeding billions of dollars every year. And that, it's a fool's game. But Tesla's well established, a healthy company without subsidies, and that's they had a 15-year head start on everybody else, so they're going to be the last man standing.
I think Patrick and McAfee need to go have lunch. They're having a great conversation back and forth there.
Yeah.
And I think that is actually very true that and Tammy, you had excellent advice for people to shop for the universities and everything else. But there's also a lot to be said for not bothering to go to university. Are the universities actually worth anything anymore?
Yeah, I think.
Well, especially if you can get an equivalent. Yeah, if you can get an equivalent training through, say, like in Canada, there's different technological colleges where you also work in a co-op program, or an apprenticeship. So you do your initial training, and then you work alongside on the job kind of thing to learn the actual things. But there is still a bit of a requirement to have that Bachelor of Engineering or Masters of Engineering or whatever, but maybe there's other pathways now.
Yeah, because engineering is like, a medical degree. You need to take in a lot of academic and practical knowledge, while the colleges, the professional colleges are great, but they focus on the practical applications. You still need engineers proper.
Yeah. Hey, can we go back to this comment by Michael Mahaffey? Stu, at 8:27 a.m. Based on energy demand projections for AI and growth, it seems obvious we'll need to massively ramp up natural gas and nuclear. And that was a point I wanted to make and forgot up top. Is we've had this rush by all these big tech firms, right, over the last few months to secure nuclear capacity to run their data centers. But that's for a longer term. And what the point that gets lost in all that is those things are coming 10, 15 years out. And what those companies are also doing, Microsoft and Google both also had announcements that didn't get a lot of attention, is in the shorter term, they're going to build natural gas power generation to run those data centers. They're completely going off this line that you can do all this with solar and wind. They know that's not possible. They have to have reliable 24-hour, 365-day-a-year power generation. You can't get it from wind and solar and batteries. You just can't do it with current technology, and you're probably not ever going to be able to do it. And so these companies with trillions of dollars at stake are making practical decisions instead of virtue signaling. And they're building natural gas first and then nuclear later, assuming the technology and permitting processes come along to allow that. If not, what are they going to do? They're going to keep building more big natural gas power plants because that's the cleanest fossil fuel.
Yeah. That's actually one of the articles that I'll be talking about in the context of Canada. But I think it's really important to point out that when they make these announcements that they support nuclear and they would buy that nuclear power for these different AI applications or whatever, I think that's meant to signal for financing for those companies to say, look, we've got these markets already lined up to purchase that electricity. So please guarantee us the funding so we can build it 10, 15 years from now.
Right, exactly. Tesla is also a leader in BESS, not just cars.
Yeah,
True
but
story.
mostly in cars.
Yeah.
And Gail says it's possible that there will be another energy crisis of sorts, and the scientists and engineers who can see the way through this will be considered leaders. This could happen in Canada sooner rather than later. Yeah, I agree, for sure.
I think it's not just possible, it's quite likely.
Yeah, it would have to be. Otherwise, what are we going to do? Recruit Russian engineers? Is that even allowed anymore?
No.
What's going to happen in Europe too, isn't it?
I don't know.
I mean, I think
What's the problem?
I think it's more likely to happen in Europe than in the United
It will
States.
happen in Europe sooner than it would happen in North America. Good.
In my opinion, this is a opinion for entertainment purposes only, so that we don't get banned. I believe there will be an end to the war in Ukraine very quickly. And I believe that it is about to happen. And if the deep state can keep their mitts out of any kind of agreement, it will happen, as German Chancellor Scholz has already been asking for Russian natural gas to be turned back on.
Yeah.
I've been spending probably 8 to 10 hours talking to folks over the weekend about geopolitical issues around the world and pipelines. It's all about pipelines. Syria is actually a pipeline issue. If Assad had Assad had agreed to having a pipeline go through and have it trade in US dollars, he would still be in power. Let that sink in for just a moment.
They have to deal with Islamists. Isn't that great? They're so, they're so friendly. I'm sure it'll work out just fine.
I'm sure it'll all be great.
Yeah.
And I think there's an issue with Turkey there as well, because Turkey wanted to be the hub and Syria was going to be the competition. And Turkey has other more global ambitions. They've been very active in
the piece of Syria.
Yeah, and they've been active in Africa, like significantly active in Africa, which has been flying under the radar for lots of people. So, yeah, that's right, Patrick. Syria is one route of pipeline from Azerbaijan to the Med.
Yeah, and there's another one from Qatar that has its terminus in Bulgaria, Irina.
What?
Natural gas pipeline plan to come from Qatar through Syria and have its termination interconnect point.
It's going to be a new pipeline?
Yes. Yeah.
Already, so we didn't want the Russian pipeline, but we're totally taking the Qatari pipeline.
Exactly.
Yes. A very principled position. Yes.
and that's 5 years out, David.
Yes, that's So I'm sure the new Islamic government is going to be happy to accommodate all of that.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. Things always
Yeah.
work out so well when the deep state plans these coups d'etats.
Yeah, and
all
when
this
they
follows.
work with fundamentalists, religious fundamentalists,
Yeah.
nothing can go wrong.
I love
Driving
Robert.
So Robert had some interesting points there about freight.
Yep.
If you go to the earlier one. So
I do
Robert
not
says
understand these numbers.
ocean-going bulk freight energy intensities are in the 100 BTU per ton mile range. Last mile distribution intensities are in the 10,000 BTU ton mile neighborhood. We can improve last mile delivery. And so then he goes on to say North American rail freight intensities are only 300 BTU per ton mile, and long haul trucking only 2,500 BTU per ton mile. So
Yep.
then he concludes by
then
saying driving a 57.5 mpg hybrid to the convenience store for 20 pounds of goods is, if I can get these numbers right,
200,000, I think.
200,000
Wow.
BTUs per ton mile.
So, Robert, let me ask this question. Do we throw in Amazon delivery from Biden administration that failed to electrify the postal service for $32 billion for 32 electric trucks? Just asking.
Hey, Amazon is maybe they're using drones now, and drones is better.
Okay.
Let's see here. Look at how energy realities are central to so many geopolitical issues and even kinetic Oh, yes, absolutely. And have been for well over a century.
Gail
I mean-
just discovered
It's
the
always about
secret
energy.
to our success.
That's and just give a shout out to Daniel Yergin, because if you read The Prize, which is the
Yeah.
greatest book ever written about the global oil business, he goes into great detail about how every decision, every battle leading up to the early years of World War II was about countries like Germany and Japan wanting to secure oil supplies for their military. Every move they made leading up to that war.
Yeah.
And it's just such a brilliant piece of work. And Dan is such a wonderful guy. Everybody needs to read that book if you want to understand all this. And then the new map,
Yeah.
too, because the new map just brings it up. And Dan predicted the Ukraine-Russia conflict in 2019, folks. And was
Yeah, well, it's
spot
been
on
going
about all of it.
on since 2014, so
Right. Well, but I mean, he predicted that Russia would actually invade to try to annex these eastern, what do they call it? The region.
Donbass.
region?
Yeah.
The region there. And
Well, he was going after the land bridge in the Crimea bases because
Yeah.
he needs the.
well, he did Crimea in 2014.
And they
Right.
happen to be populated by Russians,
Yes.
incidentally.
But he also needed the land bridge to get there because they are trying to. The Western powers are trying to isolate Russian natural gas and eliminate all marine choke points. And so he is trying to counter that by going land. And it is an amazing chess match that's going on. I would not want to play chess against Putin or Trump.
I wouldn't either.
They play on different levels.
Freight energy and cost intensity data are available online from the Bureau of Transportation Statistics and easily corroborated by analysis of supporting data. Good to know, folks. You learn so many things on this podcast every Monday. I had a
Yeah.
group of young engineers and electrical and mechanical technicians working on a project. Found myself saying, keep it real a lot.
Oh, yes. This is horrible what they're doing to children. Well, not children, but young people.
young adults.
Hey, Robert,
Very
I love
important.
Robert. Look at this. Amazon and UPS intensifies to the 50,000 per ton per mile, whether gas or electric. Holy smokes. So these
Because
people
it
that are
takes
getting,
energy to make electricity, he says. Yeah.
yes.
Yes, it does.
So these
Go figure.
So people that are fat, that are fat and don't walk to the store are getting fatter by ordering off of Amazon. Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
And I have a garage full of cardboard boxes to prove it. Okay, folks, it's time to go to our articles of the week, starting with Tammy.
Okay. So I'll go with the second article first, and this was written by Gwyn Morgan for the Epoch Times. And the title is Natural Gas, Not Nuclear, is the Key to Powering North America's Future. And he makes a really compelling argument about what we've just been talking about, the energy realities. And if you want to have reliable, affordable, on-demand energy when you need it and not have to worry too much, natural gas is the way to go. It's got is more available to some extent. It's a little bit easier to bring online than nuclear. And, he kind of puts a sop in the article that, well, nuclear maybe at some point 15 years from now, just because it takes so long to get all of this stuff operational and going. And I know one of the comments said that SMRs, people are optimistic that maybe they can fill in some gaps here. But again, the only places that actually have them running and are connected to the grid and being somewhat reliable are Russia and China. There is yet to be a North American or European SMR in operation. So I guess we have to wait and see. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of hype, and I'm just concerned that a lot of this hype is just hype, like with lots of things in the energy transition. So it's a really great article talking about the strength of natural gas. And I think he mentions the government of Alberta announced that there's a coalition that's putting together natural gas powered AI data servers and whatnot in northern Alberta. And part of the group is funded by Kevin O'Leary, who's on Shark Tank and
Mr. Wonderful,
has been he's really sensible when it comes down to business and
really
what's the
is.
reality there, So he's one of the funders or backers of this project. So it should be interesting. And then the second article was in Real Clear. And the title is Germany's an Economic Model for What Not to Do.
Exactly.
And this is a great article by Rainer Zittelmann. And he's talked extensively about what happened in Germany with the business community and the Nazis, and then what happened afterwards. And so he's got a really clear idea of what happens when governments try to tell corporations what to do in a sort of corporatist mentality. And his article is just fantastic for talking about all the things we talk about energy realities and how investing so much in wind and shutting down your coal and shutting down your nuclear is not the best way to run a modern technological society if you want to keep your industry and businesses going. Because as we've talked about, there's deindustrialization happening in Germany, and it's a really sad thing to see.
Yeah. And it seems intentional.
And Tammy, may I add that the UK, New Jersey, New York, and California are following off the lemming cliff of the green energy policies?
And Canada too.
And Canada, thank you. Sorry.
Maybe not for much longer, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that. There's lots of shenanigans.
Yep.
Oh, good. These are mine. Well, we already covered Norway, which is campaigning to cut energy links to Europe as power prices soar. But to Tammy's Germany story, I just saw a headline in Bloomberg today. I didn't read the story, didn't have time, but Germany's failing right when Europe needs it most. Oh.
Nobody could have seen that coming.
No one saw that one coming.
And a lovely story about the US solar industry that's decided to stop talking about climate change and talk about energy dominance instead in order to curry favors with the Trump administration. This is so adorable.
Yep.
This is not at all unethical. This is not at all immoral. They're trying to survive. And, they've suddenly forgotten about climate change and how good their industry is for reducing emissions. So now that they're focusing it all on arguing that solar would be critical for U.S. energy dominance, and how are these people still alive and employed? I have no idea, really. No, seriously.
Yeah.
Just
So
change the
it's
spin and
really-
all will be good.
All right. For all of our listeners, please subscribe to irenaslav.substack.com. It is important that you just listen to it. She has hers where you can listen to her great sense of humor on her articles. I highly recommend that joy
Yes.
every day.
Absolutely.
Well, not every
It's
day.
awesome.
Thank you. I should probably rename it to stand-up comedy or sit-down comedy or whatever.
I-
But yeah,
I-
it's just funny because it is ridiculous, really, and they have no qualms about it. They're not embarrassed about it at all.
No, for them,
I
it's just another tactic. It's just another business tactic.
Yeah, but please.
Oh, here's me. So let's see. So the first one on the left is in protest against LNG exports, Climate Defiance blocks unused entrance to DOE garage. Okay. That was our friend Kevin Killow writing at justthenews.com. This climate defense group is kind of like the Just Stop Oil bunch over in the UK and Germany. And they put up this breathless tweet Friday afternoon saying, "We have blocked the entrance to the DOE headquarters in Washington, D.C., and local police are swarming the area to try to shut us down. We need your money. We need your money now to support these efforts, these important efforts." Well, it turned out there's about 15 pasty white, chubby little trust fund kids from wealthy families had parked their fat butts in front of the entrance to a parking garage that hasn't been in use for several years now because 90% of DOE employees continue to work from home since COVID. Okay. They're still not going back into the office. And this parking garage is vacant, and they did block the entrance to it, but nobody cared because nobody's trying to use the stupid parking garage. Okay. And Kevin got all that and got the poop on it. Within a couple hours, he had put this great article out. Everyone needs to go read it. And you need to become a regular reader of Kevin's stuff.
Yeah,
over at Just
absolutely.
Yeah,
News.
he's
really,
fantastic.
really good. He started at the Cowboy State Daily up in Wyoming a couple, 3 years ago is where I think all of us first noticed him. And
Yeah.
the guy just does great work and has a great sense of humor in the stuff he writes. Then the second story is, again, along the same theme of what we've talked about here all day. There is no energy transition happening. What is ExxonMobil doing? They're investing $25 to $30 billion every year in ramping up their oil and gas production globally. They plan to increase by 18% overall by 2030, and that includes more than doubling their production from the Permian Basin and from their Guyana offshore operation, which is turning Guyana into a world oil power. They're already producing 600,000 barrels a day in Guyana. They're going to be producing an estimated 1.3 million barrels a day by 2030, and it's probably going to be substantially more than that. These are always conservative estimates. So that's what Exxon's doing. And by the way, Chevron's doing the same thing, talking about doubling their Permian production. And Shell and BP are also in the process of winding down all their crazy investments in wind and solar and going back to being oil and gas companies. And that's because there is no energy transition happening, folks. It just isn't.
I'm
And
shocked.
that's my rant for today.
I think dogs can talk better than humans sometimes.
Certainly better than I can.
That's right. Here's a dog trying to say a cow. What does a cow say?
What's the cow say?
Okay. So, that is, I'm sorry, I had to throw that in there, David.
That's
But
awesome.
here are my stories. You can't buy this kind of reprehensible behavior from a government. I despise the Biden administration. I can't make this any plainer. Biden's DOD doubles down on climate action as Trump promises military reset. Unbelievable hack me off. We've talked about the Postal Service plan to electrify. And if we paint it yellow, we could get a negative comment about what's her name? She disappeared off the scene so fast. I can't remember her name. Let's see. Kamala. If it was a yellow bus, we might have gotten more traction on it. I'm just kidding. But people really weren't talking about how all these North Korean troops showed up in Ukraine. It was actually oil for troops. I never thought I would have seen this in a long time. I mean, go figure this out. North Korea needs oil. Russia's got all these tankers that are, in the dark fleet. Hey, how would you like to have been on the wall for that conversation with Kim Jong-un and Putin?
Who says that? Who says
Yeah.
the news came from Zelensky?
Yeah, he's over here kind of going, hey, I got me some oil. I do a lousy Putin imitation, I can't do it. It's terrible. Hey, I need some troops. Hey, and then here's Kim Jong-il going, hey, I need some oil. Wouldn't that have been fun to be in that meeting? So anyway, you can't buy this kind of energy
You
transition,
cannot.
guys.
You just can't.
And it's about in the U.S. I cannot wait for the deep state to be dismantled. The U.S. does not need to be poking its business around the world.
I think Trump could take care of that.
I'm sure hopeful because after
If
visiting
he
with all
doesn't
these, I've visiting with a lot of people from around the world, and it's disgusting what we do. I'm embarrassed as a U.S. citizen.
It's not
This
your
is true.
fault. It's not your fault.
No, but it's
It's
disgusting.
not your fault. I refuse to take responsibility for the idiots that have been governing Bulgaria for the last 3 years. I'm sorry, I did not vote for them. I'm not going to feel embarrassed.
What
I
about
am
you,
angry,
Tammy?
though.
Tammy, are you taking responsibility for Keir Starmer and Justin Castro?
Oh my gosh. No.
Trudeau.
What's he
I do not.
doing?
Oh my gosh. Like when Trudeau came out last week and was talking about women and saying how once again the Americans have not voted for a female president and what kind of message that sends to the world. And then he said, but it's okay because Canada has the first feminist prime minister. And he's like, I will be the feminist. And I kept thinking, is he now going to say he's actually a female
Well,
prime minister, the first female prime minister in Canada? I don't know. He says some ridiculous stuff.
yes,
But
he does.
if one of the interesting things that also happened late last week, and I was going to put a link to it, I forgot, is that the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, had said that maybe what Trump needs and America needs is for Canada to shut off its electricity exports and its oil and gas exports to the United States for a day and see if they like this 25% tariff thing. And then if you see that there's, it's an interesting point. But if you look at the state of energy trade between Canada and the United States, it does go both ways.
Yes,
And
it
there's
does.
pipelines that run through the United States to serve Canada. And the United States does provide some oil and some natural gas in certain jurisdictions. We're now on lots of interconnections. So, and unfortunately, in some provinces, they're relying on American electricity to balance the grid. So,
Whoops.
works both ways.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
have the northeastern
Yeah.
states relying on all that hydropower, right?
Yeah.
In southeastern Canada, coming into those northeastern states, and there's a lot of interconnectivity, and we import, what is it, 500,000 barrels a day of Canadian crude into the United
At
States.
least.
I think it is 500 to 700,
least.
something like that.
A
So
lot of it
it's-
by rail,
Yeah.
thanks to Warren Buffett killing was it Biden or Warren Buffett that killed the Keystone?
Obama. It was
Oh,
Obama.
Yes,
Obama killed it, and then
Buffett
Biden
was
just
a
made
big
sure it stayed
contributor
dead.
to Obama's campaign, specific for that reason. Anyway, I shouldn't say that about Mr. Buffett. He's a wonderful man who's, lived a very modest life despite being worth $100 billion or so.
Yeah.
So what do y'all think about Elon Musk being worth $428 trillion since we're on our $1 billion?
Yes.
Do you know that Elon Musk's net worth is either almost as big or bigger than ExxonMobil's market cap?
Wow.
Is that an amazing statistic or what? Let me look at this. Y'all,
Yeah, but
y'all talk among yourselves.
Yeah, but net worth is such a sort of hazy calculation because is
Yeah.
it based on they own this many stocks and it's that kind of asset versus actually having money in the bank that you can spend as you would like? I don't know.
So ExxonMobil's current market cap is 487 billion. Elon Musk's net worth is 428 billion. But yeah, you're right. I mean, his net worth is all tied up mostly tied up in Tesla, the value of Tesla and SpaceX.
SpaceX is huge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
and
obviously these companies are doing pretty well
Yes,
if his net worth is so high.
yes.
So
Yeah.
that's good.
Okay, Gail says, wait,
Oh, sorry. Let me go back to Gail.
this would be very harmful for both countries, Canada and the US, which we were talking about a minute ago, and so bad for businesses that need a stable business environment to operate efficiently. Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely. But the
And
point
we
of
wanna
Trump, by the way, the point of Trump doing that now is because he doesn't want to actually impose any tariffs. Okay. He's hoping for the Trudeau government and the government down in Mexico to respond positively to his threat and start doing things related to border control. And then there will be no tariffs.
I love Robert. Your podcast is the only place where reality presides, which why I always enjoy. Thank you, Robert.
Well,
we
thank
love
you.
your comments.
Thank
Thank you.
And
Oh,
Elon was
oh
going
my gosh.
on-
Yeah,
Well,
well, he's
Speaking of
got
Brian's-
money.
Huh?
Canada's finance minister and
Canada's
deputy prime
finance minister just resigned?
Chrystia Freeland? No way. Oh
Is-
my gosh.
That's Freeland.
Yeah, she was
that
supposed to be
real?
doing the mini budget today. So she resigned? Oh my gosh, Brian,
yeah.
that's huge news. Wow.
Hey, that's a big news
So
story right there.
they're
breaking
talking
on our
that-
podcast.
Wow.
The news was suggesting that Trudeau was going to appoint Mark Carney as the finance
Oh,
minister,
come on.
even though he doesn't have a seat in the House.
Well,
It's
that'll
not
resolve
unprecedented.
everything. Oh my God, Mark Carney,
Whoa.
really?
That's
Holy
what the
This
rumors
guy's
are. I don't know
everywhere.
if it would just be terrible.
Good grief.
CBC's in
CBC is
meltdown.
I'll bet it is. I gotta find it on
Oh
my
my
cable
gosh.
system there.
Yeah, no, I got to go check it out.
I
Wow.
wonder if YouTube TV has
That's what I'm
access to
doing.
CBC for us.
All right. Hey, so if Canada was a band, is this what they would sound like?
There's Chrystia Freeland right there.
Yeah.
Why are they ruining such a great song?
Oh yeah, they butchered a great song. I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
But
What a
it's
great
fitting for the situation. It's a bittersweet symphony indeed.
Okay.
Well, what's
well,
interesting is if I can add to the Chrystia Freeland story, on Friday, she made an announcement that there's a limit for the Canada Pension Plan and Investment Fund that they can only own 30% of a company. They can't go beyond that limit for obvious reasons. You know, you don't want to be overinvested in something and have it fail and then the pension fund suffers. And they've lifted that limit because the federal government in Canada is trying to get the pension funds to make a whole bunch of significant investments in areas they want.
yeah.
And I find that just frightening. Like, what's going to happen to Canadians' pensions if the pension fund is allowed to invest more than, owning more than 30% of an interest in something?
Unbelievable.
Goodness
Brian's got
gracious.
another good one. She was supposed to present a mini budget today. It's a confidence motion. Trudeau could be soon gone. I wonder why that's why Trudeau snuck into Mar-a-Lago for a couple days. Maybe he was
Was he
looking for a job.
No.
What does
Wow.
Justin Bidet say?
And Tammy can start a bingo card on government officials resigning and win. We love Tammy. Way to go, Patrick. I don't want to bet.
Wow.
I'm going to add that, okay, don't play chess against Putin, Trump, or Tammy.
There you go. There you go. Well, it's 9
Oh,
o'clock,
dear.
folks.
9 o'clock.
We're out of time. Thank you. This has been
Let's
one
go
of
read
the
the news from
funnest
Canada.
episodes ever. I really appreciate people tolerating my moderation. Everybody have a great week.
You were great. Have a nice
See you all
weekend.
next Monday, same time.
Bye-bye.
same
Thanks,
station.
everybody. Bye.